At first glance, Fortnite looks pretty straightforward in the heat of battle. Just point and shoot, right? Not quite. Fortnite's zippy combat masks a lot of numbers and systems that can and will give you an advantage if you understand them. In this guide, we'll lift the veil on Fortnite's weapons to help you understand how they work and start using them like a pro. Here's a good place to start. What does weapon accuracy really mean in Fortnite? Understanding that is the first step to becoming more accurate after all. For all weapons except scoped sniper rifles, accuracy works on a hit-scan basis. That means that damage is calculated straight away when you pull the trigger based on where your crosshair is. There's no bullet travel time, so bullets don't drop over distance or get pushed from side to side by the wind. That removes a couple of variables when you line up a shot. So what does affect accuracy? Your own ability to line up a crosshair on the opponent is the most important factor by miles. Then it comes down to your gun. Weapon fall-off affects the amount of damage it does over distance, decreasing as you get further away. Using assault rifles as an example, fall-off kicks in at about 50 meters. They fire at 80% of their damage at 75 meters and 65% of their damage at 100 meters, so getting in close is always a good idea. Then there's first shot accuracy. When you stand still or crouch and aim down your sights, your crosshair comes together into a little pinprick which will give you perfect accuracy with the first bullet you fire. That's first shot accuracy at work. After that point, the crosshairs widen and accuracy takes a nosedive, but you can speed up the crosshair tightening by quickly crouching after a shot, aiming down the sights, then standing again. Sniper rifles aren't hit scan, which means accuracy works totally differently. The game actually models the bullet's journey from your gun over to some poor sap's head, and that journey takes time. That means you need to anticipate where the enemy will be when you pull the trigger instead of aiming where they are. Within Fortnite's broad weapon classes, pistols, shotguns, SMGs, ARs, snipers and explosives, there are different types of that weapon. So in the shotgun class, you've got the pump, the heavy and the tactical. Each of those types comes in different rarities too. The weapon color generally tells you how strong a weapon is, with grey as the weakest and orange as the strongest. What the game doesn't tell you is that there's a hierarchy of weapon types within the broader class based on damage per second or DPS. This can have a massive effect on how you choose your weapons. In the shotgun class, the hierarchy goes pump, then heavy, with tactical at the top. So based on pure DPS, a tactical shotgun will always have a higher DPS than a heavy, no matter the rarity. Pump and heavy shotguns will do more damage per hit, but with a faster fire rate, tacticals will always deal out greater DPS. That shows it's always worth picking up a rarer version of a weapon you already have, but don't make the mistake of thinking a rare version of a weak weapon will be better than the common version of a stronger weapon. This is most important with classes where DPS matters: shotguns, assault rifles, SMGs, and pistols. Make sure you learn the hierarchies for these classes, and maybe you'll think twice before keeping that legendary suppressed pistol. As much as we'd all like to spend our time in Fortnite strutting about with a legendary sniper rifle, the reality is you need to make do with what's around you when you start the round. That means a big chunk of combat is fought with shotguns, and there's a bit more to these humble boomsticks than it first appears. As we mentioned, there's a DPS hierarchy between the different types of shotgun, just like any other weapon. But even though their DPS is slow, pump shotguns carry the highest damage per shot of the lot, even at common rarity. That means it's always worth keeping one on hand to get at least one shot out of when you're at close range with someone. An old tactic was to stack a pump and a tactical in your inventory and quickly swap between them for fast, lethal damage. In Season 5 though, Epic have introduced a short delay when swapping between shotguns. It's still technically quicker to swap from pump to tactical, but the difference isn't that great. Instead, keep an AR, SMG or other weapon next to your pump. There's no delay penalty outside of shotgun swaps, so it's still better to swap out for the most DPS. Just like in real life, shotguns in Fortnite fire out a big spread of buckshot, riddling enemies with holes at close range. In Season 5, the way this works in-game was changed, and since you spend so much of Fortnite fighting with this weapon type, it's handy to know a little bit more about how that weapon spread works. All shotgun types fire a spread of 10 pellets, which always form the same shape and always fall within the reticle. Damage for each shot depends on how many pellets hit your target. Each one counts for 1/10 of the gun's total firepower. To make the most of each shot, you want to make sure your opponent's body fills the reticle as much as possible. Aiming down the sights brings in the spread, so it's nearly always a good idea to focus your fire for maximum damage. Even if you're not pointing directly at the target though, the spread will still hit if they're within the reticle. Shotgun headshots also have their own quirks. Even if you aren't aiming directly at the head, any pellets hitting that area will count as headshots and do double damage. The best way to do maximum damage is to fill the reticle with someone's face, but in a pinch you can add a bit of extra damage from a high body shot with a couple of head pellets. The last factor to take into account is distance. At longer distances, the opponent won't fill the reticle and you'll only hit with a few pellets, and after around 50 meters, shotguns don't even hit the target. Most importantly, at closer distances you're more likely to hit with more pellets even if your aim is slightly off. C4 is always an enjoyable way to surprise enemies. Just when they thought they'd scared you out of your building and enter it themselves, you tap the right mouse and the walls explode. It's one of those simple pleasures that never gets old. But the funny thing about C4 is that for all the spectacle and all the timing required, it doesn't actually do that much damage to players. A direct hit with C4 only does 70 damage, which is equivalent to the average shotgun blast. Therefore, if you're laying a trap, you need to place 3 C4 bricks together to ensure you kill your target. And don't trap the outside of a house expecting to take out the guy inside. Explosives don't damage players through walls at any distance. This is true for everything from clinger grenades to grenade and rocket launchers. The best tactic for using C4 then is for demolishing structures. C4 really tears through wood, steel, and any other building material you attach it to, and that makes it much handier as a tool to disrupt enemy forts and flush them out into the open than as a weapon in itself. Assault rifles have gone on a bit of a journey in Fortnite since the game first launched. For a while, the community felt they were underpowered, and it's taken a few patches to get them up to useful gun status. They're now available as an M16, SCAR, burst scoped, thermal scoped, and LMG. Statistically, the burst rifle has the worst DPS of the non-scoped ARs. That makes it tempting to opt for either an M16 or a SCAR, then press and hold left mouse button until all the bad men are lying down. This is a mistake. Although the humble burst rifle offers worse DPS and even damage in all but the legendary FAMAS, it's almost always a smarter choice. Why? Because you can control that 3-shot burst so much better than a wild spray of SCAR fire. Remember first shot accuracy? Burst rifles have less bullet spread than other ARs. The 3 shots you fire at a time will be within a tighter bloom and more likely to hit your target, which means they won't veer much off your 100% accurate first shot. Meanwhile, squeezing an M16's trigger releases more bullets while becoming less accurate with every one. It's a trade-off between DPS and accuracy, and one that's always worth making in the latter's favor. Pistols aren't the most glamorous weapons on Fortnite's map, and their low base damage doesn't make a strong argument for keeping hold of them throughout the game. But there's more to these small arms than you might think. Specifically, they pack an insane amount of headshot damage. Consider this, the most headshot damage an AR can deal out is 74, and that's with a legendary thermal scoped. The legendary hand cannon, meanwhile, dishes out 156. All hand cannons, revolvers and dual pistols deal out over 82 headshot damage, with only pistols and suppressed pistols weaker and languishing between 46 and 56. It's always worth keeping a handgun of this type because you just can't do without such an effective score settler at long or close range. They're great for a precise first shot in a surprise attack before swapping to another weapon to finish the job. And that wraps up our deep dive into Fortnite's weapons. Let us know your own pro tips in the comments below and hit the subscribe button for more like this on Fortnite and other competitive games. See you next time.